There is a pervasive myth that people who join cults are gullible, unstable, or somehow broken. The reality is that high control groups actively target the healthy, the highly educated, and the deeply intelligent. A sharp mind is an asset to a manipulative organization. A recruit with strong analytical skills is better equipped to construct complex rationalizations for the group's increasingly erratic demands. The entry point involves a leader operating with charismatic authority. These individuals possess a magnetic, often narcissistic appeal, and they specifically look for people navigating a life transition, a period of grief, or a deep search for purpose. Sociologists have studied this dynamic for over a century. Max Weber defined charismatic authority as power that bypasses established frameworks, demanding absolute devotion based solely on the leader's perceived extraordinary gifts. A high IQ does not protect you from emotional distress. Situational vulnerability is the true prerequisite for recruitment. The indoctrination process begins with a phase clinical psychologists call unfreezing. The primary tactic involves lovebombing, a calculated campaign of intense, overwhelming attention, flattery, and validation. This sudden affection hacks the victim's neurobiology, triggering a massive spike in dopamine and oxytocin. This chemical flood compresses human bonding, building years of trust in days. Dangerously, this hormone surge suppresses the prefrontal cortex, effectively disabling the brain's critical alarm system. The recruit is temporarily chemically unable to process skepticism or recognize the warning signs of abuse. Love bombing is a calculated biological hack designed to establish absolute emotional dependency before the organization's true nature is revealed. Once dependency is established, the group shifts into the retention phase. The love bombing abruptly stops, replaced by intermittent reinforcement, sudden criticism, and calculated isolation. This withdrawal of validation spikes cortisol levels in the brain. The resulting stress leaves the individual desperate to regain approval, making them highly compliant. To understand this psychological captivity, researchers rely on frameworks like psychiatrist Robert J. Lifton's 8 criteria of thought reform, developed by studying prisoners of war. The foundational tactic is milieu control. This is the dictatorial regulation of the victim's physical environment, their sleep schedules, and their access to outside information, severing their connection to objective reality. Next is the demand for purity. The group enforces strict black and white thinking and impossible standards of behavior, keeping the follower in a chronic state of guilt and shame. They also rely on thought-terminating cliches. These are highly reductive, easily memorized slogans designed to instantly shut down internal doubt and block critical analysis. These architectural controls systematically destroy the victim's underlying capacity to think independently. So what happens when the group's ultimate promise, or even an apocalyptic prophecy, demonstrably fails? In 1954, social psychologist Leon Festinger infiltrated a small UFO doomsday cult in Chicago to observe exactly how believers would react to this scenario. The stakes for the followers were incredibly high. They had quit their jobs, given away their life savings, and severed ties with their families to prepare for a flood that would destroy the earth. When the apocalypse didn't arrive, they experienced severe cognitive dissonance, the agonizing mental friction where heavy sacrifices violently clash with reality. To resolve this pain, the brain invents a new justification, concluding their intense devotion convinced the aliens to spare Earth. Because admitting they had destroyed their own lives was too painful to process, the highly intelligent brain worked overtime to double down on the delusion as a psychological survival mechanism. To survive this permanent state of cognitive dissonance, shame, and fear, the individual's original identity must be stripped away. Clinical researchers call this doubling. The recruit constructs a secondary, artificial identity that operates side by side with their old self, adapting completely to the high-control environment. The cult successfully manufactures an entirely new, perfectly compliant human being through the total erasure of the former self. By the final phase of indoctrination, known as refreezing, the new identity is cemented. Escaping a high-control group results in a catastrophic psychological rupture. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. To prevent escape, groups rely on shunning, the total severing of all social contact. The cult strategically positions itself as the sole provider of foundational human needs, holding the victim's sense of safety and belonging hostage. When a person exits the group, that artificial cult identity immediately collapses. The survivor is completely isolated, losing their entire community and belief structure overnight. High control groups purposefully engineer this form of social execution, ensuring the emotional terror of leaving outweighs the desire for freedom. The clinical reality of post-cult life is severe. Many survivors develop complex PTSD and experience entrapped affect, where the emotional anchors of their captivity remain active. Survivors face lingering, paralyzing symptoms, profound paranoia, unwarranted guilt, and a persistent, irrational fear of divine or social retribution. Their journey began as an intelligent, functional person searching for purpose, and ended as a neurochemically hacked, deeply traumatized survivor. Recognizing the structured, psychological machinery behind this process is the only way to remove the pervasive social stigma surrounding cult victimization. Cult victimization represents a highly structured success of manipulation, and understanding how it works is society's only true inoculation.